Now we're on.
Woo, doing it dirty. Well, no, not really dirty. Something kind of unique happening here with this episode. So this episode is one of the occasions where that you are about to hear. It's pre-recorded. It was recorded on Friday, the 28th. It's getting released on Saturday, the 29th of September, 2018. During this Friday, there ended up a story came out because throughout a lot of this episode, we talk about one of our favorite episodes or one of our favorite subjects on Sovereign Tech, that being Facebook, right? Of course, I note the sarcasm. But there was a story that came out on Friday, the 28th, about Facebook that some odd 50 million accounts were affected by a security flaw. And a lot of the conversation that gets talked about in this episode has to do with something we've said many times, that Facebook is a horrendous steward of your data. They do not do well. I am going to read very quickly here. I will put the link in the show notes for this. We'll get to the episode. You're going to get your opening and everything. You'll get your segments, the whole thing. Okay. But I want to address this because this is so, I don't often like to talk about news of the minute, but it's appertinent to what we're going to get into in this episode. And I think that perhaps some of what I say in the episode will be bolstered even more by this security flaw. Now, it's true that a security flaw like this can happen to just about any company. But I think that there is a certain amount of faith that, and you never want faith, there's a certain amount of faith that gets put in the tech giants that somehow they will protect your data better than any other company. And it's just not true. We're talking about literally 50 million accounts here. Let me read the story quick. Facebook made an announcement today, but it wasn't the fun kind. Guy Rosen, VP of Product Management of Facebook, says that at least 50 million user accounts have been compromised by unknown parties. The social network is taking several steps to safeguard affected accounts, as well as other accounts that have questionable involvement. Facebook became aware of the attack on Tuesday, Stallion breaking in, that's September 25th, just a few days ago. The cause was a flaw in the site's code for a feature called View As that let you see your profile or how your profile looked to another person. The attacker exploited a flaw in View As to steal access tokens for as many as 50 million accounts. With the token, someone else could take over your Facebook session and access your data. All those accounts have been manually logged out by Facebook to invalidate the stolen tokens. In addition, Facebook logged out another 40 million accounts that have a View As request from the last year. If your account was affected, you'll see an alert when you log back in. The vulnerability has been fixed on Facebook's end, but it's also shutting off View As until it can conduct a full analysis of what happened. The police are investigating the attack with Facebook's help. Oh boy. So I don't know if any of you noticed on Friday morning, it happened to me, and actually I'll admit it happened to Stephanie as well, where now, I don't use Facebook. I don't really log into it, but I happened to have a device that had Facebook Messenger on it, and the notification came up that I needed to re-log into Messenger. And I was like, wow, well, that's kind of weird. And Stephanie, got a similar thing for Facebook in general. And this must be what it was, is that, again, 50 million some odd accounts were affected by a flaw in this feature known as View As. Yes, this can happen to any company. There's no doubt about that. Okay, it's the nature of code. This sort of thing happens. But the reason to bring this up is that I want you to consider, I want you to realize just how much, think about everything you're doing on Facebook and think if somebody else had access to that. How could that affect your life? A lot of people think, well, they make the statement, and look, I've made this statement years and years ago when I was a little bit of a different mindset. I would say, if Google's ever fucked, we're all fucked. I think a lot of people feel, well, if Facebook's fucked, we're all fucked. Okay, guess what? Facebook is fucked, so you better start doing something about it. All right, you better start shaping up your ship and getting things going correctly and start locking stuff down. You're going to hear a lot of how to do that in this episode. All right. And things to consider, or maybe just whole cloth getting the fuck away from Facebook. All right. This happened on Tuesday, and they didn't say anything until, they got it resolved on Facebook's end. And yep, that's how you do security. Okay. But regardless, they are not impervious. It's not only that Facebook will just willfully hand over your data, but they can also get, cracked into. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If you saw that you had to relog into Facebook, you were probably affected in some way. It actually ended up being about 100 million accounts that they ended up shaking up. And what Facebook has shy of 1 billion or something like that. So, I mean, that's 10% or so of the Facebook user base. That's frankly huge for that to be a problem. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that and, get this slipped in since I had the opportunity. As we find out more, of course, we'll talk about it in future episodes of Sovryn Tech. But now you may enjoy the episode of Sovryn Tech as it was originally intended with this, little addendum. Well, is it an addendum if it's in the beginning? Well, with this little foreword, how about that, to what you are about to hear. So stay safe out there. Delete Facebook.
Earth, 2018. The alliance between governments and tech giants has led to the rise of the surveillance society, distraction technology, the attention wars, and the erosion of your mind. But one show stands against this insidious system. Hosted by the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He and his co-hosts formed the Intellectual Resistance. It's time for Sovryn Tech.
You're dressing all in black, from your front to your back, and all your evil ways, they seem to go on for days, and as a matter of fact, you got one more. Smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup, before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain. Alright, you've been knocking down these doors, you've been filling up this room. You're running around the place like your name was Dr. Doom. You're a killer of culture, a vulture of style, and it won't be that long before you end up on trial. You're gonna smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup, before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain.
Woo! Can you summon your talent at will? Can you deliver on a deadline? Can you sleep at night? Woo, the Golden Stallion can do it all, but who the hell says I sleep? Woo! It is time for some Sovryn Tech, baby. And I mean, we don't talk about the same thing every week, but man, sometimes the hits just keep on coming. Play it again, Sam. I mean, it doesn't stop. But it is... Woo. The rated R radio star, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu. I'm here for you. Don't you worry. Don't you fret. You got me right between your ears. Go ahead. You can lay back like I know you like to. Well, I know some of you like to do when you listen in. But oh, baby, has it been a hell of a week. Woo. In fact, I got to tell you something. I'm going to lose some street cred for this, I think. But... so I have a Amazon wish list. It's a long-standing Amazon wish list, wishlist.zog.ninja. That's zog.ninja, wishlist.zog.ninja. And somebody ran wild on that thing because somebody got me quite a bit off of it. And one of those things is, and I don't even remember when the hell I added it to it. But it's a Chromebook, and I'm not going to review it here, but I'm actually, I'm like, let's fuck around with this because, we talked about this recently, how Chromebooks, they can run Linux apps now, they can run Android apps and everything, and I've been messing with it, and look, fuck Google, okay, but I'm just saying that it's pretty wild what you can do with one of these machines now. Anyway, I'll save my full review for another time, or maybe I'll make that a Patreon content. We'll see. But I'm very intrigued, and I just want to say thank you to the Sovryn Tech listener. I don't know who you are that ended up purchasing quite a bit of this stuff for me, but I'm honored. I add stuff to that wish list every once in a while, and a lot of times it is stuff that I just want to test out, and be able to report back to you. What's the viability of using this? Does this actually work, etc.? Like one reason I know I wanted a Chromebook was I can't find a fucking answer online as to whether or not Audacity can work on a Chromebook. Well, I can tell you right now that yes, Audacity can work on a Chromebook, but ironically, it doesn't work as a Linux app. Oh, what's all that about? Well, there's something called Crossover that actually lets you run Windows apps. Long story, but I've been shocked. I mean, I used to use a Chromebook, pretty heavy duty actually for a while. Not that I would use it for obviously recording podcasts, because at the time Chromebooks were still thin clients, but these aren't thin clients anymore. So anyway, I'll save my review on that, and maybe when we have Google's October event, which will be coming up, as along with Microsoft's going to have an October event. Everybody has, all the tech giants have an October event, right? We'll cover. Maybe I'll talk more about it then. But I'm intrigued. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to the listener that did that. So speaking on the other end of the spectrum of Chrome, why don't we go ahead and get into the Foreplay here, which is where we talk about all the little stories that have been happening in the tech world and science, really. Even though I don't know if we're going to get into too much science in this episode, but we'll see. You never know what happens. I mean, sometimes I call an Audible, and no, I don't mean audible.com, but sometimes I call an Audible. I'm like, you know what? I want to fucking talk about this, and we'll start talking about it. But anyway, so opening up, Firefox Monitor. You know, last week we were talking about how Firefox came out with their new VR web browser, which I felt was relatively pointless, at least at this point in time. But they came out with a feature for their main web browser, and if you have a Firefox Sync account with it, called Firefox Monitor. Now, what Firefox Monitor is, first off, yes, it is using your email address that you put into it, generally, you know, to do Firefox Sync and everything between devices, which is a very handy thing. It is using that, and it is checking it back with the HIBP database, which is the Have I Been Owned or Pwned database. And this is a database that keeps track of, you know, sites, services, you know, all these things that at some point have a leak or that something else goes on, and was your data effectively a part of that leak? So it's based off of an email address more than anything. So, you know, if you have a ton of email addresses, I'm not exactly sure how helpful this would be for you, but basically Firefox Monitor will let you know, it will alert you within the browser, hey, you've been owned. Okay. And I love that it's called Have I Been Pwned? I mean, because instead of saying Have I Been Hacked, because you know, something, I mean, I will sometimes use hacking in the pejorative or the negative, but in general, hackers are heroes, and hacking itself should not be seen as a negative term. It's a very positive, heroic act, in my opinion. So I don't like to use it too often, and I appreciate that this database is not called that. This database has been around for a little while, but that's really all Firefox Monitor is just like it's pretty much a front end for the HIBP database. A fine and dandy thing. I would recommend signing up for this if you are a Firefox user, and I'm not too worried about, well, isn't this Firefox creating a database of my email addresses and all that? Well, they're storing your email as a hash. Okay, so you know, it's not like they don't have their own little database of you. Mozilla's doing this right. Okay, so I think that this is a pretty handy feature, and something that, well, I mean, who else is offering this? You know, at least within the browser itself. This would have been a lot more interesting. You know, speaking about Chromebooks, there was a little while where Firefox OS was going to be a thing. Of course, we talked about recently about Kai OS, K-A-I-O-S, which is a phone operating system, which is designed or which is a fork, or kind of the continuation, not necessarily a fork, but the continuation of what was going to be Firefox OS. And I said years ago, when Firefox OS was really first announced, I wouldn't have minded a good thin client of Firefox. That way we had because, you know, when you look at some of the advantages of running such a lightweight system like Chrome OS, and there really are, like, I want to be honest, fuck Google. Google's collecting all your shit, no doubt about that. Pay attention to that fact. We're going to be talking about more collecting that they're doing and so on in just a minute here. Okay. Fuck them. But, you know, not that, and I don't agree with thin clients. I think that's a terrible idea, because really your computer is your country. Okay. So you don't want something that just has, you know, 16 gig or 32 gig of onboard storage or something. I don't like thin clients. I'm not really a fan of the bigger cloud. I like having your own cloud, you know, having your own NAS and things like this. I think that's wonderful. That can sync between your various devices today. But, you know, if we had like a really privacy-centric, totally open source, because Chrome OS is not, but a totally open source, alternative to Chromebooks as far as like language, as far as usage language, design language, and so on. That could have been a really cool thing. And I mean, at the same time, I appreciate that Firefox is concentrating on creating a great browser experience. But then when I think about it more, I mean, most people just use their fucking browser. And so the browser is the entire experience. So you might as well have it just be the OS, because for most people, that's what it is, right? And yeah, I think that might have been somewhat of a missed opportunity, but maybe it'll come back because Firefox is clearly reaching out in interesting ways. Not that Mozilla is doing everything right now, because there's been some funny business that they've been doing with add-ons that they've been baking in and turning on by default. Of course, there was the issue with Pocket, a couple of years ago, I guess, but now there's been some newer reports along that. And I know, I mean, some people look, because if you're concerned about what Firefox is doing, and believe me, if you're concerned about some of that, I understand. Or you don't like Firefox Monitor, you don't actually like all these added-on features, which I can understand that too. Like me personally, in my dream world, I'd want my browser, to be as dumb as a box of rocks, right? I mean, I don't want it to really do much of anything. I don't want it to have a bunch of extensions. It needs an ad blocker, and that's about the end of it. Okay. For most people, that's not how it is. But there's, what is it? Is it WaterFox? WaterFox is an interesting fork, a genuine fork of Firefox. That you could look into that. That might be there was Pale Moon, which I've recommended Pale Moon in the past. But WaterFox, I think, is really the best of the bunch here. And considering where all of these browsers are going, it really is actually maybe more so. I mean, Firefox Monitor is a move in the right direction. I get it. Mozilla is doing a lot of great things. The Quantum Engine is, speedy as hell. I mean, fuck, yes, nice work, But if you're looking to really get back to that dumb as a box of rocks web browser, well, maybe you want to take a look at WaterFox. That kind of rhymes. But anyway, you can look it up on DuckDuckGo to find it there. So yeah, Firefox Monitor. If you're using Firefox, yeah, I see no reason not to sign up for it. I mean, they're holding your credentials the right way. They're barely holding them, and they're doing it as a hash. And this is a very handy service for what it is. So all right, let's get on to another little story here. And I'm debating, which way do we want to go here? Which way do we want to go? Yeah, let's talk about it now. So while we're talking web browsers. Wow. This past weekend, of course, this is getting released on September 29th, 2018. But the previous weekend, I want to say it was like the 23rd or something, somewhere around there. Matthew Green, who is really considered one of the top cryptographers and security researchers in the world, highly respected. I respect him, out of Johns Hopkins University. And he wrote a pretty scathing blog post. Now, usually his blog posts are pretty technical stuff. I have read them before, and I read them frequently, but usually it's really technical stuff. I mean, like I've told people, believe it or not, sometimes my life is actually pretty boring, and I'm just sitting down reading. Genuinely, I'm reading cryptography research papers. Like I do that so often. You have no idea, but I got to stay on top of my game. Not that that's necessarily stuff that I talk about on the show, but regardless of that, he wrote what is way more of a layman's blog post, but pretty much saying that he is done with using Google Chrome. And his point on that was that recently, and I want to say it was version 69 of Chrome, that Chrome now, if you log into Gmail, okay, say you're using Chrome and you're not actually logged into Chrome, right? Because you can log in, separate users can log into Chrome and all that, and then all of your bookmarks and everything can sync over, whatever. If you logged into Gmail, say you didn't log into the browser, but you just logged into Gmail, or you logged into any Google service, apparently, within the Chrome web browser, it would automatically log you into the web browser. Now, you're saying, well, doesn't it always do that? Yeah, here's the thing, is that most people had no clue that this was even not going on. Like, there has been an option for the past 10 years, for as long as Google Chrome has been around, and it's amazing it's been 10 years, where if you didn't log into Chrome, it only stored bookmarks and other data on your local machine, on your local computer, okay? However, if you logged into Chrome, then it would send all of that data to to Google. Now, you can turn off your sync settings. That's been possible for a few versions of Google Chrome now, or recently, where you could choose, okay, because you don't always want everything to sync to a device. Like actually, when I was setting up the Chromebook that I was recently given, I don't want all of the bookmarks from like a million different versions of Chrome that I've used over the years or something. I don't want all that to transfer over. I want a clean experience, going into it. And so you turn off sync, right? And you don't sync anything. And passwords, you don't want to be using Chrome for storing your passwords anyway, right? You want to be using LastPass or, KeyPass or something like that. So, but most people just don't know. They think that, no, this is just how it works. I log into, Gmail, and I'm logged into the browser, and the browser syncs everything over for me, and away I go, right? That's how the average person thinks. So this isn't really a concern for them. But for Matthew Green, it was a concern that he felt, well, fuck, now I'm just going to get logged into this. I don't want to give my data to Google. I didn't sign up for that. I just thought Chrome was this great, largely open source browser that did a great job with web standards. And I get his perspective, and Chrome has been very much like it is the dominant web browser, but it is very much done. It's done very well as far as web standards and all that. You can still see that with Firefox. As great a strides as Mozilla has made with Firefox lately, there's still things that just don't work as well with Firefox as they do with Chrome. There's a reason that Opera started using Chrome's engine as well. They went with the Blink engine and so on. So Matthew Green raises a whole bunch of privacy concerns about this. And also, supposedly, even though if you log in, it doesn't automatically sync, but you could very easily accidentally sync all of the info, with just the wrong click, this little click that you could do. There's a link in the show notes if you want to read more about it. But this really raised a stink, and other security researchers jumped on board and were raising a stink about it as well, saying, what the fuck, why can't I just use Chrome and have Gmail and not have to worry about, me logging into Gmail, sending all this shit ton of browsing data to Google from the past and then really on forward, because as I understood it, it would send everything that you had done on that local machine. And if it's Matthew Green, hell, maybe he has a computer that's been doing it for 10 years that he never logged into. And it could happen. But now it's been Google coming with version 70 is going to backtrack a little bit on some of what they implemented with version 69 as far as it goes. And I actually put a link in the show notes about it. It's from Ars Technica. And I'm just going to read a little bit here. Google will partially revert a controversial change made in Chrome 69 that unified signing into Google's online properties and Chrome itself, and which further preserved Google's cookies even when users chose to clear all cookies. Chrome 70, due in mid-October, so this isn't available right now, still breaking in, will retain the unified signing in by default, but it will allow those who want to opt out to do so. Chrome has long had the ability to sign in with a Google account. Doing this offers a number of useful features. Most significantly, signed-in users can enable syncing of their browser data between devices, so tabs open on one machine can be listed and open on another, password saved, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you know the score. So they are backtracking on this and making it possible for you to turn it off. There was a flag that if you go into Chrome, // flags, where you could turn it off anyway. But the thing is they didn't, and this is maybe the most egregious part of it, is that, okay, it's, and even Matthew Green said this. All right, it's Chrome's browser, or, it's Google's browser. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it, right? But it'd be nice if they at least told us. And that's the thing. They didn't tell anybody, and they didn't even really update their privacy statement, which Matthew Green congratulated them in the past on having such a simple, EULA for Chrome. And they didn't even really update that. This is a pretty, I get it. I really, really get it. The concern that Matthew Green had, that, wow, this is all this is going to happen automatically, blah, blah, blah. But on the flip side of that, with all due respect to Matthew Green, if you understand what is happening here, okay, with the changes that Chrome made, the biggest problem here is that Google didn't tell anybody that this happened. That is the real problem. All right. But if you know how to say opt out of this already and so on, you can do that. It doesn't, the average person who doesn't understand the implications of this, because there are genuine privacy implications, and auto collection of data and so on. The average person that doesn't understand that they don't know the difference. They have no clue. They think that all of this already happens anyway. They already think that it's magic, right? And so, I mean, and yeah, Matthew Green admits that a lot of people are going to respond to him saying, well, what did you expect? It's fucking Google. And well, that's certainly very true. But yeah, I mean, if you're somebody that understands the implications of this, you're also probably the same person that knows how to turn it off and how to have always turned it off. Again, the problem is that Google didn't fucking tell anybody. They didn't make it. This should have been a big announcement that was going to happen. But then at the same time, they probably didn't tell anybody because they know their customer. They know that the average Chrome user thinks that this already occurs, that this already happens. But, that said, just because there's a flag to turn it on and off, like we talked about, I think it was in last week's episode, where Google can turn things on in Android, like soft switches without you even realizing it. Like they can turn on your battery saver feature or your location data or whatever else. They can turn that on, just with a signal that they put out. If you think they can't do that with Chrome, I have shadow cities in China to sell you. Okay. Because this is, of course they can. All right. Yeah, I appreciate what Matthew Green is saying, and he's telling people get away from Google now, which, hey, I'm not going to necessarily argue against that, for much of anything. But, how many people are going to really get away from Gmail? I don't know. I've been trying to get people to do that for a long time, and I don't know how well that works, but maybe people will listen to Matthew Green more, and if it becomes like a real groundswell of security researchers, awesome. Again, fuck Google. This is the very nature of what they're doing. And I mean, another reason I think there could be it doesn't necessarily, the data collection that Google engages in is horseshit, in my opinion. But as long as you understand that that's what they do, there can be a very benign reason that they did this. And that is they are getting into, much like last week on the show where we were talking about the Amazon home, as it were, Google is trying to create the Google home as well. And there's no user interface with these smart speakers and a lot of other devices that Google would like you to be using. So for everything to auto sync and to automatically send all of that data to Google, that's beneficial to their plans for the Google Home. Now, again, the whole concept of the smart home and all that stuff is a horrendous, terrible, human liberties crushing concept. All right. I don't support it. I don't agree with it. But, within that paradigm, yeah, you would want this data to be automatically syncing. You would want this happening, probably so that the smart home can be a smarter home that Google is providing for you. So anyway, that's going down. But again, the only real problem here is, in my opinion, yes, it's a problem that they're collecting all this data, but don't fucking use Chrome. But the only real problem here is that Google, wasn't really blatant about this, and they should have been really fucking blatant about it, and they were not. But that said, Google sometimes does pretty good as far as security goes. We recently talked about how, of course, they were coming out with the Google Titan key, which is a two-factor authentication strategy. It's a physical USB key, and that has Bluetooth. Actually, the Titan key is two keys, so you have a backup as well as the ability to have two-factor. So that wouldn't be three-factor, but anyway, you get my point. They talked about their metrics is that there hadn't been a successful phishing attack in over a year at Google headquarters after they implemented the use of these USB security keys, at Google. And I think that that's a very strong statement, and I will applaud Google for implementing that process and that protocol at their business. I wish every business would do that. I wish every person would do that. And I have been recommending using YubiKeys, which the Google Titan key is really no different than a YubiKey at all. There's literally no difference other than the Titan key has Bluetooth, but then YubiKey, if you talk, or the company Yubico that makes the YubiKey, if you talk to them, they don't like that because that requires a battery, and they have issues with it, and that also creates it doesn't allow you to create as indestructible, perhaps, a second factor device as maybe you would want. But regardless, I mean, the fact of how successful it was in a company the size of Google, as well as, when you consider that, okay, why is Mozilla taking the time to make a service like Firefox Monitor that we were just talking about, and so on? And that's because, these leaks and the potential for you to for an exploit against your digital life are just so prevalent now. So I recommend that everybody use a YubiKey, or something like that. If you want to go with the Google Titan key, I guess you can go with that. Again, I don't necessarily see any harm in it because they're just selling you the same thing that other companies sell. But Yubico just came out with the YubiKey 5 this past week. I did order one as soon as they announced that they were out there. They have a few different options. They have them in USB-C flavors. My favorite one is probably the main YubiKey 5. And it's not USB-C. It's what they would call USB-A, a male, that'd be the male part of USB-A. It's USB-A, and it has NFC built into it, which the YubiKey 4 did not have NFC built into it. You either, if you wanted that, you would have to buy the YubiKey Neo. But they have the smaller version. They have the big version. I ordered the big version because also they said that the YubiKey 5, the larger one that has NFC and has the USB-A connector, is actually crush-proof, which I think that's fantastic. That's amazing. Kind of the main selling point here, though, is that, and we talked about this a couple months ago, the WebAuth protocol that has gone through W3C and everything that they are putting into where, in a browser to, say, log into Facebook or to log into Google or to log into whatever service, even like Fastmail. I use Fastmail for my email. I can log into it with WebAuth. It allows for you to not, or wait, no, I can't use WebAuth, but I can use a YubiKey. But anyway, some of these services you don't really need a password, but it allows for passwordless login, but using the security feature of the physical USB key that you have, like a YubiKey and so on. Initially, when that was announced, Yubico released a YubiKey, just a security key, not a full-on YubiKey, like the YubiKey 5 that has a bunch of other features in it, like the ability to store, one-time pins, and the ability to work with a lot of other protocols. But WebAuth or FIDO2, you could only get it in like this $20, blue security key. Now, I ordered one of those as soon as they came out, and I've used them, and it works brilliantly for the few services that have it already. Hopefully, it'll become more of a standard. But the YubiKey 5 now has all the abilities of past YubiKeys, and it has FIDO2 and WebAuth and so on. So this is really, I think this is the best security key out there that you can get your hands on. There are a lot of options, a lot of features involved with it. This is just a brilliant, brilliant thing to have. And I'll say it one more time. If you are concerned that you lock down your accounts with the YubiKey, as you should, and you are worried that you are going to lose that YubiKey, it's very, very simple. You buy 2 of them, okay, and you lock one away. In a safe or whatever, all right? And then you don't have to worry about it. If you lose one, well, then you got the other one, and then you can change to other keys if you're worried that someone's going to find that key and then be able to log into your shit, okay? It's a very, very simple solution. In fact, when you go to Yubico, which is the only place that offers it right now, you can't get it on Amazon, I don't think. And you want to be careful when you buy from third-party resellers anyway when it comes to security products like this. Like, you don't buy Bitcoin wallets off Amazon, okay? You buy them directly from the manufacturer, like Trezor or something, But actually, Yubico will sell you a 2-pack at a discount because they know that you're worried about that. What if I lose it? Okay, stop with that excuse, because that's all it is. It's an excuse. Buy 2 of them. Spend the money. Buy 2 of them. The YubiKey 5, I think, runs for $40, and depending upon which model, you can get the smaller ones. Those run a little higher. I think it goes up to like $60 for them. But this is priceless security that you can implement right now, and I totally recommend doing that. And the YubiKey 5 is a great solution, especially since it has NFC built into it, so it can actually work with your phone as well. We talked about that, I think, either last week or the previous week when we were talking about how to do, should I use Authy? Should I use Google Authenticator for my 2FA? No, you can use Yubico's software solutions and store it right in your YubiKey. That way you don't have to store it in the cloud, or you don't have to worry about losing the device that has it. And again, you set up 2 YubiKeys. That's the trick here. So YubiKey 5, brilliant. I'm glad that's a thing. I'm glad that that's out there. Again, lock your shit down, okay? In fact, you know what? There was Brian Krebs. He put out a tweet that got thousands and thousands of likes and retweets and everything. Brian Krebs, of course, security researcher, respected up there with guys like Matthew Green. He tweeted, I'll read the tweet here for you. It says, being an InfoSec for so long takes its toll. I've come to the conclusion that if you give a data point to a company, they will eventually sell it, leak it, lose it, or get hacked and relieved of it. There really don't seem to be any exceptions, and it gets depressing. And that's the thing, is that, it really feels like, unless you're keeping all your shit local, and that's part of what I recommend and part of what I talk about doing often on Sovryn Tech, it's not if, it's when. And so the more that you can be secure, yourself, and you take all the actions that you can, you engage in all the best practices, the better off you are when these leaks happen. And maybe even when a company that you've given stuff to, where stuff leaks because you used a YubiKey or something, maybe you're going to be all right. You won't be one of the victims of the attack, so of the cyber attack or whatever. So, keep that in mind. And I get it. I understand what Brian Krebs is saying. I understand where he's coming from, because it does feel like, it does get depressing, and it does feel like it's a matter of when, not if. I think we should consider that and wonder where the actual problem is, because maybe the infrastructure itself is the entire problem. I think there's a lot to say about that. But let's get into our last bit of opening news during the foreplay here, and this is an interesting one. So SiriusXM, which I've actually been trying to get Sovryn Tech on for years, SiriusXM is, of course, the satellite radio service, which I've subscribed to off and on because I'm a big fan of Eddie Trunk. Eddie Trunk is a heavy metal DJ that's been around for like 30, 40 years. And he's been in the record industry and everything. Just a sweet guy, and just brilliant. And he has a podcast that I listen to all the time on Podcast One. But he has like a daily show that he does on SiriusXM, and he's one of the most popular guys on there. But anyway, so SiriusXM, they are acquiring. It's got to go through through regulatory bodies, but they are acquiring Pandora for $3.5 billion. Now, I do subscribe to Pandora presently, and I am a fan of Pandora and what they offer. This is interesting because the language that SiriusXM was using is that they might be mixing in their packages, like their product. Their shows and their stations and everything into Pandora. It's kind of brilliant, really, because Pandora is very close to, it does it algorithmically. Pandora really does algorithmically what SiriusXM does through paying like very specific people to put together very curated lists. Kind of similar, I guess, maybe to like what Apple One was on Apple Music. But regardless, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. SiriusXM has been trying to get into streaming for a while. I can tell you that I wouldn't be shocked if they mix it in with your Pandora, your already paid for Pandora account, subscription. Of course, you can use Pandora for free. I don't know how SiriusXM would interact with that, but like I said, I've been off and on with SiriusXM over the years, and every time I go to leave, like they offer me this by comparison to what they usually charge, they offer me this crazy deal. Like they'll say, "Look, we'll give you SiriusXM for a year for $30." And I'm like, "No, I never listen to it. It's not even worth giving you the $30 for it." Because I just don't have the one thing SiriusXM, I've always said this needs to do is they have to, because the only thing I really listen to SiriusXM for would be their radio shows like Eddie Trunk, but they've got to allow for like a 2 they allow for you to listen to it later. You don't have to listen to it live anymore, which that is a relatively new development for them. They've got to allow for you to speed it up. Like I'd listen to Eddie Trunk. He does like a 2 or 3 hour show every day. I would listen to it, but only if I could put it at 2.5x, to where I could have it listened to inside of an hour or maybe even 30 minutes or something like that, depending upon how long it actually ran. That's what I would need, to really like be willing to subscribe to SiriusXM again. But if it's going to come in with my Pandora subscription already, fuck, great. I'm glad that it'll be there. But like the way that the stations work on SiriusXM, again, it makes sense with working with Pandora. And I know Pandora hasn't exactly been doing the best financially, but I really do love the service and what they do. Like, I mean, it is really cool when you put in a specific song and, the radio station that can pop out of that can be just pure dynamite. I mean, Stephanie and I, and whoever else, will be doing a workout, and you pop that in, and if you're not sure what you want to play, I mean, it's great for that. And I know other music services offer that as well, but Pandora's always done just such a brilliant job with it. I'd be intrigued to see, I'm glad that Pandora will continue on, or at least it seems like by the language that SiriusXM was using in the acquisition is that it will continue on, and they're actually just going to merge some of their features in with it. This could become a pretty major player as far as, taking on Spotify, taking on YouTube, and some others. Like, I think this is a really smart move on SiriusXM's part, and the right move. I'm curious if they're going to develop any specific hardware that would allow for Pandora to do its thing. But yeah, I mean, I'll be keeping an eye on this, and I'll tell you one area that I say this all the time, there is no central hub for podcasts right now. Not really. Not one that actually promotes podcasts and that really makes them discoverable. If you could somehow use Pandora's algorithms to create like really interesting podcast networks or radio show style networks, that could get very interesting. And I think SiriusXM would do well to try for that. So we'll see. But I mean, they'd have to get into the podcast business, which they're not exactly in right now. But we'll see how that goes. But this is an acquisition where I'm like, yeah, okay. In fact, go ahead and buy SoundCloud next, even though I know no one will because of all the toxic assets. But this is not a surprising move, but an interesting one, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye on it as far as what happens. Anyway, I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo, we got all kinds of crazy stories to get into.
Hey, look! Got an energy spike. Hold on! Launch. Now! Bombing the Narn back to the Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness!
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is coming on! It's our turn now!
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Story of the week.
It is time for Story of the Week, where we cover a big story, shall we say, that's in the news. Now, this was pretty interesting. This is actually from September 20th, 2018, so this is pretty fresh. I'm actually reading from CNBC, and it brings to light, in a weird way, something that I've been espousing, supporting, and striving for with Sovryn Tech for many years. I don't know if it was exactly from the beginning, but certainly for a very long time. And here's the headline. Former Google CEO predicts the internet will split in two, and one part will be led by China. So let's read it here. It's from Laura Caledoni. Eric Schmidt, of course, that's the former Google CEO that we're talking about here. Eric Schmidt, asshat, who has been the CEO of Google and executive chairman of its parent company, Alphabet, predicts that within the next decade, there will be two distinct internets, one led by the U.S. and the other by China. Now, Stallion breaking in quickly. Was I saying China should have its own internet over the years? No. Was I saying that there should be internets? Yes. Plural. You have no idea over the years how many times I would say the word internets and people would email me and say, what are you, an idiot? You know that the plural of internet, or that there is no such thing as internets. It's just internet. And I'd have to keep disclaiming every time I would talk about the idea of there being multiple internet infrastructures, I'd have to keep disclaiming saying, I know when I say internets, I'm talking about literally there being more than one internet, plural internet, okay, plural internets. Now, this is a term in vernacular, okay? This is a term that hopefully nobody thinks is the sign of stupidity anymore. The concept that there will be multiple internets is a real thing, and the word internets is now an actual word. Great. I couldn't be happier, but let's read on. Schmidt shared his thoughts at a private event in San Francisco on Wednesday night, convened by investment firm Village Global VC. The firm enlists tech luminaries, including Schmidt, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Diane Green, as limited partners, then invests their money into early-stage tech ventures, whatever. At the event, economist Tyler Cohen asked about the possibility of the internet fragmenting into different sub-internets with different regulations and limited access between them in coming years. Quote, what's the chance, say, 10 to 15 years, we have just 3 to 4 separate internets? Again, was this guy an idiot at this Village Fund? Probably not. He's saying multiple internets. Stop making fun of people for saying internets. Reading on. Schmidt said, quote, I think the most likely scenario now is not a splintering, but rather a bifurcation into a Chinese-led internet and a non-Chinese internet led by America. If you look at China, and I was just there, the scale of the companies that are being built, the services being built, the wealth that is being created is phenomenal. Stanley breaking in for a second. I don't know if I agree with him about the wealth. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, all money's, or not all money. Fiat money's paper, okay? But I mean paper is in, like, I think there's a lot of weak money going around, but that's a whole other story. Reading on. Chinese internet is a greater percentage of the GDP of China, which is a big number, than the same percentage of the U.S., which is also a big number. If you think of China as like, oh yeah, they're good with the internet, you're missing the point. Globalization means that they get to play too. I think you're going to see fantastic leadership in products and services from China. There's a real danger that along with those products and services comes a different leadership regime from government with censorship, controls, etc. Look at the way BRI works, their Belt and Road Initiative, which involves 60-ish countries. It's perfectly possible those countries will begin to take on the infrastructure that China has with some loss of freedom, end quote. Let's read on a bit here. The Belt and Road is a massive initiative by Beijing to increase China's political and economic influence by connecting and facilitating all kinds of trade, including digital trade, between China and countries in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Schmidt's predictions come at a time when his successor at Google, CEO Sundar Pichai, has stirred up controversy around the company's strategy in China. Reportedly, Google has been developing Project Dragonfly, a censored version of its search engine that could appease authorities in China. The project allegedly included a means to suppress some search results, booting them off the first page, and a means to fully block results from sensitive queries, for example, around quote-unquote peaceful protests. All right, Stanley breaking in for a second. Google, I think, already does this, and I've talked about this for years, that like with Google Now, or what used to be Google Now, no matter how much you research anarchism, you will never get cards in your Google feed, or now it's not even called the Google feed anymore, it's called Discover. You will never ever get cards or anything about anarchism. You just never fucking will. You won't. And that's because, but I mean, boy, if you look up LeBron James once, you're going to get flooded with LeBron James. I've brought this point up many times over the years. Google already does this. What they're doing in China is done everywhere, just nobody realizes it. Or at least only a few people seem to realize it. So, but that, I'm not defending what they're doing in China. I think it's just as egregious as all those workers that are leaving Google en masse because of their dealing with China and because of their dealing with the U.S. military, with military contracts, new military contracts that they said they wouldn't do, but they're doing them anyway. And we talked about this recently on the show. But regardless, reading on. In recent weeks, hundreds of Google employees lobbied Pichai for more transparency and signed a letter saying that the reported plans raised, quote, urgent moral and ethical issues, end quote. Pichai has said that Google has been, quote, very open about our desire to do more in China, end quote, and that the team, quote, has been in an exploration stage for quite a while now, end quote. Oh, this has been going on for a while, has it? And considering many options, but is nowhere near launching in China. In a separate discussion last night between Schmidt and several startup founders, he lauded Chinese tech products, services, and adoption, especially in mobile payments. He noted that Starbucks in China don't feature a register. Customers order ahead online and pay with their phones before picking up their lattes. A business development leader with Facebook, Amy Arkbong, asked Schmidt if large tech companies are doing enough good in the world. Schmidt replied, quote, "The judge of this is others, not us. Self-referential conversations about do I feel good about what I am doing are not very helpful. The judge is outside." Okay, I want to stop here for a second on this. Two things. One, why, I don't agree with Schmidt's assessment of China. I think China is a bust town, not a boom town. It is a bust town. It's falling apart very slowly, and there's scary implications of that, which have to do with war. Because how did the U.S. solve its little Great Depressions and economic problems years ago? They went to war to solve it. I have concerns. Okay. So, but would he say all of this to, for his previous company, Google, to be in good graces with China? Fuck yes, he would. Why else would he allow this, this conversation that he had to get out into the news? Because it makes it sound like, wow, China's fucking awesome, right? And so this is a very crafted, carefully laid out bit of marketing here. All right, for Google itself. Like I've said for a long time on Sovereign Tech, I don't think anybody actually really ever leaves Google. Not when they if they're doing so to take on another job. It's one thing, I think, if they're leaving because they disagree with the ethics of Google. But otherwise, I don't know that anybody actually ever really leaves Google. So, yeah, Schmidt still playing ball with them, of course, and to some degree he still has some, he has some capacity within that company and certainly with the parent company, Alphabet, as well. So, and then the other part here, that is, let me read it again. Schmidt, so the question was, do you think tech companies are doing enough good? Schmidt replies, the judge of this is others, not us. Self-referential conversations about do I feel good about what I'm doing are not very helpful. The judge is outside. I get what Schmidt is saying, but that is the worst dodge that I've ever heard of saying, hey, do you feel, yes, it is helpful to ask yourself, do I feel good about what I'm doing? Because if you don't, it's time to change. And this was such a dodge for him to pretty much say, hey, well, actually I know I'm doing a bunch of horrendous shit, but, I'll let history be the judge, after it's all said and done and everything's burned to the ground. How about that? I mean, that's pretty much like what I feel like he's doing here. That is a non-answer. And it's a non-answer. It's a malicious non-answer because it's pretty much him admitting, I know that I'm doing ugly shit. In my opinion, that's what that's admitting. Let's read a little bit more of the story. At several points in the private discussion, Schmidt urged entrepreneurs to build products and services that are not merely addictive, but valuable. Oh, so he's saying you can still make them addictive, but, let's just make sure there's some value in there. Okay, Schmidt. He also said that not enough companies measure the right things. Too many focus on short-term revenue growth and satisfying shareholders rather than what's best for their users, society, and the long-term health of their companies. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, there's a lot to break down within this, and it should terrify you because this guy, Schmidt is still a huge name in the tech industry and certainly has a lot to say. I mean, he wrote a whole book about what tomorrow is going to be. Well, based upon what he's saying, a lot of it I'm terrified by. Now, I appreciate, like I was saying earlier, I appreciate this, the popularizing of the concept of multiple internets. That is the upside of this, again, bit of marketing for Google to go into China, which is really what this is. That is the upside. The problem is that I don't want an American-led internet and a China-led internet. I just want multiple internets that give people a lot of different options and that work, that serve different bioregions and everything else in the ways that they uniquely need to be served. Or it can just be multiple internets that are all dumb pipes. However that shapes up, as long as we, as users, have options of what internet we can be on, so we can be on the one perhaps that the NSA doesn't spy, or we can be on the one that falls under because unfortunately I don't think we're ever going to have our little anarchist Earth, okay, that falls under different regulatory hurdles or lack thereof. I mean, you want this. You want all of these different infrastructures, I mean, eventually we want to get to full-on mesh networking, certainly. But yes, there needs to be multiple internets because having options is a bulwark against tyranny, right? I mean, that's how you have freedom. Freedom is options. Freedom is choices. So I want these alternatives to exist. Do I think that Schmidt's prediction might end up becoming true? Yeah, actually, I think he's kind of on that this is going to be a thing. And when he's saying there's going to be a China-led internet, he's saying China is going to lay their own pipe. They're going to, build their own infrastructure, their own, they're going to have their own, there's going to be their own RJ45 running ever. I mean, you name it. They're going to have their own thing. It is not going to connect to the internet that we use right now. Okay, not even on the hard line. It's not going to connect to it. I mean, maybe they'll create connection points. I could imagine that sort of thing. Maybe. It's a big maybe. But are they planning on creating their own internet? Sure. I'm sure that's a huge part of what's going on. Do I support that? Well, the Chinese people are one thing. The Chinese government is another. I never support the Chinese government. I don't support the American government whatsoever. China is, I mean, they have WeChat. I mean, they really are a powerhouse online. It's true. And I think that they could genuinely pull this off. And this might be something that we're going to be seeing in the very near future. But the upside, again, is that once there's one other internet, then suddenly everybody thinks, well, hey, can I make my own internet too? And that is the future, my friends. Hey, I want to tell you about a Sovryn Tech sponsor. Now, you may have known it as ZenCash, but they have gone through a bit of a rebranding. And hey, I get it. The rebranding is Horizon. And again, not like Horizon, Horizon. So Horizen. And you can find their website, horizon.global. And I mean, they're still, the monetary, the cryptocurrency is still called ZenCash and so on. But again, like we've always said, ZenCash was originally an entire platform, and Horizon is putting that on the horizon, baby. So you want to check it out. Go to Horizon. Again, it's HORIZEN.global, Horizon.global, and I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Now, let's get back to the show. Woo!
This week in blockchain.
Speaking of blockchain, I mean, yeah, let's have the decentralized internet that Tron's trying to, the crypto, not Tron. He fights for the users, not Bruce Boxleitner's Tron. Let's have that. Let's have them all. Let's go nuts. Just like I think there's going to be multiple blockchains. I mean, it's not just going to be Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin, I think, is going to be king for a good long while. And I don't think they're going to, well, anyway, I don't want to get too much into that kind of prediction stuff. But, if you want to know a good reason why you want, again, not just like a separate internet protocol, not just something that, that runs off of, the same dark, or not dark, it's not dark fiber, but the same fiber that runs to your house, that runs to, your cable provider and everything. Okay. But completely separate infrastructure from the internet that we have today. Again, this is hardware, hardline, completely separate, completely different, all new. Part of the reason you might want that is really based upon our story this week for blockchain, this week in blockchain. And that is, it's from CryptoCoin News here, or CCN, they just call themselves now. The U.S. government has spent millions trying to track cryptocurrency users. This is from September 25th, 2018. Let's read it here. If you've ever wondered whether Uncle Sam is spying on your cryptocurrency transactions, a new report reveals that if you reside or do business in the United States, the answer is probably yes. Citing public records, research firm Dyer, it's fitting, reports that U.S. government agencies have collectively spent $5.7 million hiring contractors who perform blockchain analysis, which involves linking an individual's identity with their cryptocurrency funds. Though there are tools and even individual cryptocurrencies that purport to allow users to send funds anonymously, the vast majority of cryptocurrency users leave enough of a trail that, equipped with the right tools, investigators can determine to whom a particular wallet belongs. Once a cryptocurrency user exposes their pseudonymous cryptocurrency address to a service or individual who could identify it as belonging to their real-world identity, they run the risk of having their entire wallet and any of their wallets with which that wallet has transacted exposed as belonging to them. Once blockchain forensics experts takes the time to aggregate the data. Frequently, these privacy lapses occur when a user deposits or withdraws funds at a cryptocurrency exchange that requires users to undergo identity verification, though they may also be the result of posting their cryptocurrency addresses online under their real name or an identifiable pseudonym, or even transacting with someone else who has been unmasked. The IRS accounts for 38% of blockchain analytics spending. So the IRS is obviously, for very obvious reasons, is, very much behind this. But let's read this. Unsurprisingly, the top spender among U.S. government agencies is the Internal Revenue Service, which is responsible for collecting federal income tax. The IRS has signed 9 contracts with cryptocurrency forensic providers, together worth just under $2.2 million of the 5.7 again, and representing 38% of the government's total spending on these services. CCN reported last year that the IRS had contracted with blockchain tracing firms to help unmask investors who have not been accurately reporting their cryptocurrency investment income on their tax returns, and the agency has subsequently ramped up enforcement of alleged violations related to this asset class, even goes so far as to take Coinbase to court. Of course, Coinbase took on the government in court, which, I'll give them kudos for at least that much. However, the second largest spender in the U.S. government comes as much more of a surprise. One might expect that either the FBI, the DEA, or the SEC would be the agency next in line in spending on tracking cryptocurrency use. Instead, the second largest blockchain analytics client was Immigrant and Customs Enforcement, ICE, who enforces the government's immigration policies, blah, blah, blah. ICE had taken out 9 contracts amounting to $1.5 million, while the FBI came in third with 12 contracts worth more than $1.1 million. Meanwhile, the SEC, which polices the securities markets and has filed charges against a variety of cryptocurrency fraudsters and ICO operators, has spent less than $185,000 on tracing the flow of funds. So, this is an interesting breakdown. Bottom line being is that there is, you can say as far as government programs go, $5.7 million is a drop in the bucket and doesn't mean a whole lot, but no, really it does. When you're working with such new firms that are probably, have these just small, quote unquote, crack teams of, anywhere from 4 to maybe 12 people, probably not over 20, that are engaging in blockchain analysis, even if they have that much, $1 million to one of those contracts, or even a few $100,000 to one of those contracted companies is a lot of money. And you're going to probably get a lot of quote unquote value out of that money spent. Value as in, okay, who's doing this, who's doing that. And this brings up the point that, and like I said, Bitcoin's going to be the daddy, for a good long while. But privacy coins need to be taking center stage. Zcash, Horizon, so on. These need to be things that people are getting used to using. They need to understand the reason why they need to use them, and so on. And we also need, we need that alternative infrastructure that can't be so well monitored and so easily monitored and interconnected. In fact, I've had it lined up for a story to talk about on This Week in Blockchain for a while, where a guy did a cryptocurrency transaction, or did a crypto transaction. It wasn't exactly for currency, but it was a blockchain effectively transaction. We'll call it that. And he did it with pirate radio. Perfect. Okay. That way, that kind of, there's concerns around that, but bottom line being is that's one way to get around perhaps being so tracked, with all of the centralized analysis going on in blockchain. Bottom line being, don't really start thinking about, like, if you're using wallets, try the Samurai wallet or Wasabi or something like that. If you're using Bitcoin, start thinking more about these privacy coins. We gotta start taking this stuff really seriously, because they're retroactively looking back on a lot of these transactions, and you might want to tighten up your ship. If you haven't been, we talked about this years ago. We said, look, there's companies that are, like, a lot of money in Bitcoin is going to companies that are trying to analyze and track what's happening in the blockchain. You can say the blockchain's already open, but tracking it, and identifying real world users with what's happening in, within the blockchain itself. This has been going on for a while. This is where a lot of money. This is what a lot of blockchain companies, a lot of the ones that have cropped up, this is what they're doing. Is they're doing analysis. So this is very real, and it's important to pay attention to it. And like I said, this is why you don't just want Bitcoin either, right? As much as we want multiple internets, the same reason you don't want just one blockchain, one cryptocurrency, is because you want to be able to run and hide in the other one. or at least be able to store your wealth in another one that doesn't get tracked so much. However that ends up shaping up. This is why you always want, again, this is the moral of the episode, I think. You want options. You want choices. You need to be able to jump ship to something else at any given moment and be ready for that, or just decentralize your ship by engaging in all of these different infrastructures. Okay? And that's, it just really brings that to head. So, all right, we'll be right back with some more sovereign tech. Whoo, boy. Who knew? ICE. Gee, I wonder why they're keeping an eye on that. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this is a great fucking show. And you know what? I agree with you. And I'm not just saying it because I'm the host. Woo, but I am the podcast champion, baby. And let me tell you, if you want to help out the podcast champion, you want to help out the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and you want to make Sovereign Tech an even bigger show, here's how you do it. And don't worry, it's not for free, and you get something out of it. You go to Patreon. You go to patreon.com/sovereigntech, SOVRYN Tech. Patreon.com/sovereigntech. Become a Sovereign Tech patron, and you will get access to literally thousands of hours of bonus content. There's new content every week. You get to be in the live Q&A hangouts that we do every month. You get to access to the Wednesday Q&A. Do you like that important messages segment? We do one every single week, and it goes a good hour strong, if not longer if needed, depending on how many questions there are. That's only for patrons, and all you got to do is at least $1 a month. Some do significantly more, and I'm honored by that. But become a patron, support the show, help it grow. Patreon.com/sovereigntech. And I thank you to all the patrons already out there and all of the ones to come. Patreon.com/sovereigntech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
It is time for HackSec, where we talk issues of hacking and security, privacy, all that. Of course, I think you can't really have security without privacy, but that's a whole other story. We're actually going to skip important messages this week, but I just want to put someone emailed me, into the bbs at sovereigntech.com. Or no, they use the contact form at contact.zog.ninja. And the name that they put down, because I don't need your email address, I don't even need your name, but you can put a name if you want. They put Don Diego de la Vega, and I won't tell you what they said. It wasn't anything bad, but someone knows me pretty well if they're emailing me as Don Diego de la Vega. Longtime Sovereign Tech fans will know what that is, and cinephiles, I'll just put it that way, will know who Don Diego de la Vega is. But very nice. It was I felt very understood, and I thought it was really cool to get an email from Don Diego de la Vega. Because, boy, we could use Zorro right now. Anyway, couldn't we? Wow. So this was actually sent in by a Sovereign Tech listener. It's from Reuters. Strap on the Fitbit is the story. John Hancock to sell only interactive life insurance. What the hell does that mean? This is from September 19th, 2018. John Hancock, one of the oldest and largest North American life insurers, so this is a life insurance company. They're actually out of Canada, I believe, will stop underwriting traditional life insurance and instead sell only interactive policies that, here's the key, that track fitness and health data through wearable devices and smartphones, the company said on Wednesday. The move by the 156-year-old insurer owned by Canada's Manulife Financial Corp. So they're owned by a Canadian company. But this is an insurance company that's been around for a very long time. And now, let's read on. Marks a major shift for the company, which unveiled its first interactive life insurance policy in 2015. It is now applying the model across all of its life coverage. Interactive life insurance, pioneered by John Hancock's partner, the Vitality Group, is already well established in South Africa, and Britain is becoming more widespread in the United States. Policyholders score premium discounts for hitting exercise targets tracked on wearable devices such as a Fitbit or Apple Watch, and get gift cards for retail stores and other perks by logging their workouts and healthy food purchases in an app. Stanley, breaking in for a second. So give us all of your data. Tell us everything you're doing. We even want to know how long you slept last night, and we'll give you a gift card. Wow, what a trade. Your privacy, your human liberty of privacy for a fucking gift card. Man, I bet people are just all over this, aren't they? They never think about the implications. Reading on. In theory, everybody wins as policyholders are incentivized to adopt healthy habits and insurance companies collect more premiums and pay less in claims if customers live longer. Privacy and consumer advocates have raised questions about whether insurers may eventually use data to select the most profitable customers, while hiking rates for those who do not participate. The insurance industry has said that it is heavily regulated and must justify in actuarial terms its reasons for any rate increases or policy changes. Customers do not have to log their activities to get coverage, even though their policies are packaged with the Vitality program. The insurer will begin converting existing life insurance policies to Vitality in 2019, it said. It is too early for John Hancock to determine if it's paying fewer claims because of its Vitality program, said Brooks Tingle, head of their insurance unit. But data it has collected so far about customers' activities suggests that it will, Tingle said, as Vitality policyholders worldwide live 13 to 21 years longer than the rest of the insured population. So now there's still some choice in this. But look, this is what people have been saying for such a long time about what occurs with any data collection. Now, I mean, a Fitbit and an Apple Watch collects very personal data, and it's data that I think an insurance company can bring to regulators and say, hey, you know, this is really useful, this is pertinent to us, this is relevant to us, we should be able to adjust our pricing based upon this. And right now it's just about pricing, you know, getting 15% off and getting some gift cards and who the fuck knows what else, you know, as far as like if you actually wear one of these things and you do well by it. But as they, you know, right now, while it's still kind of a choice, what you have is piloting here is you're piloting an early collection of data and setting a precedent to where, you know, John Hancock can go to the government in whatever country, you know, again, this is happening South Africa, Britain, and the United States, and say, look, our users that wear Fitbits and Apple Watches, they live 13 to 21 years longer than anyone else in your country. You need to pass regulation that forces people to, that either A, we can force, not that, I don't think that they'd ask for regulation that forces the entire population to wear these things, but that if anybody, that it is acceptable to us to force any of our customers to wear these, you know, to wear a Fitbit or to wear an Apple Watch and so on. Now, this has been long brought up that when you have these centralized stores of data, which Fitbit data and Apple Watch data are a part of, okay, that this would eventually get used against you. There's the classic video that you can find on YouTube where a guy is trying to order a pizza, but the person that he's talking to on the phone to order the pizza says, oh, but we got your, you know, we found out you didn't exercise enough last month, so you can order a salad through us and so on. I mean, this is the nightmare scenario that everybody's been saying, and yet regulators and insurance companies have been saying for the longest time, oh, no, we're never going to do that. That's never going to get, you know, no, the government wouldn't let us do it. We're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. Guess what? It's happening. Right now, it's happening. And it started not just with the insurance companies. I mean, this story doesn't even get into this. It started with employers. Employers were offering you a discount on your, you know, what they took out of your paycheck for insurance, for health insurance, if you wore a Fitbit. So that got you started. That got the ball rolling. And then, then we have this data. So then the insurance company says, okay, well, now we'll go broader with this because we have, you know, we have certain metrics and everything. Again, that 13 to 21 year living longer metric is a juicy one. And it's just going to keep snowballing, and it's just going to keep going and going and going. But people will put these fucking things on. I mean, I stare in awe. I mean, I get it. I understand some people wear these things, whatever. I'm not an asshole about it really. But if you think like you needing to know, did I get in all of my steps today? The cost of that knowledge, I think, is too much. You know, this is not okay. Like, eventually this is going to get used to the point where, you know, I mean, your health insurance, who knows what kind of health insurance you're going to be able to get if you don't give them the Fitbit data, or if the Fitbit data they get, the insurance company doesn't like because you didn't fucking work out or because you ate this. I mean, they're even telling you, yeah, put your meals in the app and all this stuff. And eventually I'm sure they'll have you take a picture of the meal and so on. And I don't know, maybe we'll just flub it by having plastic dishes around that makes it look like we all just ate tofu, and then we can move on with our lives or something, you know, and trick them. But eventually, you know, obviously I'm sure those cameras will get better to where they'll know if it's real food or not. But this is not a slippery slope. This is a snowball that is rolling, and it is happening. And your willingness to wear these devices is pushing it forward, is making the snowball bigger. Do something about it. Fuck these devices, because eventually the cost is going to be too much for you. We'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech.
The most incredible television event ever, as you join the crew of Battlestar Galactica.
Right here, you creepy crawly. I have led the entire human race to ruin.
The last of mankind, fighting for life in a hostile galaxy.
Most of us are dead.
Alone, with only one hope, Battlestar Galactica and her crew.
There is no other destination.
Commander Adama, Captain Apollo, the intrepid Starbuck, and the dazzling Athena, searching for a new and peaceful world.
May as well live for today. We might not have many left. Let the attack begin.
A new age of high adventure, Battlestar Galactica.
Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, where I get to take a little breather because I get to have fun and talk about video games, because usually there's not anything to get too mad about as far as video games. It's not exactly true, but more often than not, I like to talk about the happier stuff going on in gaming. And we've got a few things to talk about here. But, oh boy, you know, we're going to get back to that conversation about what happens with your data. And even, I mean, to say nothing of what can be done legitimately, quote unquote, legitimately, as in through by law, okay, with your data, say that it gets collected by your Fitbit or your Apple Watch, to say nothing of what happens when, not if, when that data leaks. Okay, and or when it gets sold off or used by a company in a way that you really didn't know was happening or you didn't like. We're going to get back to that during our wild card segment. And you know who we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Facebook. Now, we're going to talk about Facebook, the parent company, here in a minute as well. A couple things I just want to get into quick before we get to that story. I am loving this. In fact, if you listen to if you're a Sovryn Tech patron, patreon.com/SovrynTech. If you're a Sovryn Tech patron, you heard my co-host Rob and I, on the Star Wars update, we were talking about gaming in general. And I brought up a point that I've brought up, I think, on Sovryn Tech Prime as well, that this mini retro console craze, you know, the NES Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic, and, you know, the Genesis Mini that's going to be coming out, the PlayStation Classic that we mentioned last week that's going to be coming out in December, and so on. I mean, the C64 Mini, the Neo Geo Mini, all of them. Okay, the reason that I think that these are really selling so well, and they're doing so well, is I think it's an unconscious one in the market. I think that people are, when they play these, when they pick them up and they start playing and they keep playing because they realize, holy shit, this game just wants me to have fun and it's not coming after my money with a bunch of in-app purchases and a bunch of, you know, extensions and, you know, other, or I don't know, whatever, loot crates and a bunch of other add-ons and all this horse shit, right? And I think that very much is going on, and I think people, you know, really, really want that. There's also, you know, the desire, I think, for the preservation of art from, like, the retro community, which I think is an important thing as well. But I'm excited that this is happening, and as I've said previously, they can re-release every fucking console that was ever made. I'll buy an Odyssey 2 Mini. You understand? Like, I will really buy that, and I'll even put the cellophane stuff up on the screen. That's fine with me. Right? But of all ironies, of course, that was Magnavox that made the Odyssey, right? The Magnavox Odyssey. I forget when Philips and Magnavox came together. But anyway, Philips in the 90s had a very interesting, though kind of ill-fated console called the CDI. Now, a lot of people might remember this one. They might not. This is during the time of the Panasonic 3DO, the Atari Jaguar, which I would love a Jaguar Mini. Boy, if Atari wants to do something right, do that now, because there is some great shit on that. The Jurassic Park game, the Aliens game on there, fantastic. But anyway, Philips came out with the CDI, and there was a bit of an online petition going on. Of course, there seems to be a fucking online petition for anything, so what do they mean? But this one seems to have actually meant something, because Philips came out, you know, the company, Philips, came out and said, yeah, we'll try our best to do a CDI Mini. And I mean, come on, it's got to be easy money, you know. So So why the hell not? In fact, what would be really interesting is if they worked with Nintendo in some way. Some of the worst Nintendo franchise games, not necessarily games made by Nintendo, were released on the CDI, and people forget about that. There was Hotel Mario. There was a couple, maybe 3 Zelda games. What was there? The Wand of Gameleon, Faces of Evil, and there were, Zelda's Adventure, I think. I mean, the games were terrible. You'd never really want to play them, but to have them and have them preserved in an easily accessible way to where you can even see them, I think people would pay $100 for that. Or, I don't know, anywhere between that sweet spot of 60 to 100 that these things are selling for. I think that, honestly, it's a very exciting prospect, that we could get a Philips CDI. And I would jump on it in a heartbeat. I've actually been pretty much pre-ordering every single mini console that's been released. So I'll be reviewing them over time. GameTalk's not going anywhere. But regardless of that, another announcement that we got this week, this is coming from Facebook, the parent company, is actually from Oculus. So I want to shift gears into that. But yeah, I'm fully supportive of the Philips CDI becoming a thing. If you want to take any kind of effort to try and make that happen more, and you're listening to the show, please do. You have one customer, at least in me, I guarantee you. But Oculus announced, and I also talked about this on the Star Wars update on Patreon with Robin. And this is the Oculus Quest is the name of the device. There was an Oculus event this past week, the Oculus Connect 5. It's the 5th one, I guess. And the Oculus Quest, it's coming out spring of 2019, so next year. It's going to run for $399, which is kind of a sweet spot price. And as far as I can tell, it's the same thing, because I can't watch Mark Zuckerberg talk. I have to read it. If I actually watch that guy move and talk, chunks start to hurl up. It just gets bad. But I do like Oculus. Like John Carmack, I am such a fan. John Carmack is a hero. And as long as he's running things there, I feel pretty confident about it. I'll tell you, there was the big story this week. I didn't even get into it, about how the original founders of Instagram have left. So now you have the founders of WhatsApp and the founders of Instagram. They are all leaving Facebook, which is a turn from where Facebook originally. I mean, the one nice thing you kind of used to be able to say about Facebook is that when they bought a company, you could feel a little confident about it because they seem to be generally hands off. They just wanted to collect the paycheck and have some control over their competition. As to where now, it seems like all of these founders are leaving the company, and it appears to be, speculation is that because Facebook is controlling where the acquired companies are going. They are controlling what Instagram is doing. They are controlling, what WhatsApp is doing, and so on. That shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's getting worse, I guess, is the bottom line. And I'm a little worried. I mean, and I've said this before, if John Carmack leaves Oculus, then dump the Oculus platform, and I hope that that's something that's not a matter of time, but I really do trust John Carmack. So the Oculus Quest, they announced this. This is a midway device, meaning not that it's going to play midway games, though I'd love that. Throw Hydro Thunder on a VR headset. I am there, baby. Or Rush 2049, you bet your ass. But that it's between the Oculus Go, which I own an Oculus Go, which, by the way, they also announced that Oculus Go is going to get access to YouTube VR in the coming weeks. That's pretty interesting. We'll see how that goes. But it's between the Oculus Go, which runs for $200, and the Oculus Rift, which runs for $600 or something like that. But the Oculus Rift has to connect to your computer. The Oculus Go and the Oculus Quest can operate independently. Now, I don't know if the Oculus Quest is going to need to connect to the Oculus app on your smartphone, because the Oculus Go does to handle software. But otherwise, it's a standalone headset. You don't have to put your phone into it or anything. The Oculus Quest is also a completely standalone headset, no wires. You don't have to plug in your phone, and kind of like you would with the Gear VR. But I don't know if you're still going to have to connect to the Oculus app. I'm going to guess yes, but I'm not sure on that. So this is a pretty major play on Oculus's part. This is trying to get even more mainstream with VR, take advantage of that. And there's already, again, we talked about on the Star Wars update, there's the Vader Immortal series of games that's being written by David S. Goyer, which is fucking great. That's going to be released for it. It's going to be like a launch title, effectively. They are treating the Oculus Quest like it is a console. And that's a very important thing to grasp here. In fact, John Carmack came out after Oculus Connect and said that he felt the Oculus Connect, or the Oculus Quests, that headset, its real competition is the Nintendo Switch. That's who they're competing against. And it's going to have like 50 titles, I think, at launch, the Oculus Quest. So this is being treated as effectively like a 9th generation or 10th generation, depending how they want to count it, as a 9th generation console. This is a competitor to the console market, but it's VR. And so that, which, I mean, granted, the consoles are all getting into VR, PlayStation VR, and so on. And maybe Nintendo, there's been some hints that in the code there's references to VR, so, the Switch might get into that too, and maybe Carmack knows something through some industrial espionage that the rest of us don't know. But regardless, that is an interesting point that, this is a new entrant into the console war, effectively, and that John Carmack is openly stating our only real competition is the Nintendo Switch. Very weird. I am going to get my hands on one of these on the Oculus Quest, partly to play Vader Immortal, but also because I'm a big supporter of VR. This will be interesting to see where this goes. We'll be keeping an eye on it, but I love the standalone headset. We'll be right back with more.
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall. Confirm.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives. But you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at blake7.com.
Wildcard.
It is time for Wildcard, where we can bring up just about any story. This is one that I had heard about, but really, and I think this is much of what Brian Krebs was actually responding to in that quote that I played for you earlier. But a lot of Sovereign Tech listeners also sent this in to me to talk about. So of course I'm going to talk about it. And I wanted it to fit in somewhere. And this is a really, really fresh story, just from the past few days. And it's, we just got done talking about the Oculus Quest. Is that owned by parent company Google? Google. Yeah, they're all the same. By Facebook? Yes. Again, like I said, if Carmack ends up leaving, well, then we, I think there's going to be a very real problem. And certainly that's something I keep a very close eye on. Believe me, I wish that there was someone else willing to front the money and come out with really low-cost headsets that can do impressive shit besides Facebook, besides a Facebook-owned company. But really, they can only do that because of Facebook's coffers, I think. That's the only reason they can sell the Oculus Go for $200 or $250. It's the only reason they can do what appears to be, some pretty interesting specs for the Oculus Quest. We didn't even get into that. For $400 and have it be a completely standalone headset, is it has that other money, kind of backing it. And I'm very conscious of that, and I don't really want to buy in so much to Oculus because of that. And I definitely want to keep a very close eye on how much Facebook actually injects its tendrils, into that. And with the Instagram story alone, I was very concerned. But yeah, right as it stands right now, you can actually log into, for those that don't know, you can log into an Oculus headset and into the Oculus ecosystem. You do not have to use a Facebook account. You can use a completely separate account. Is it hard for them to connect you between the two? That's another story entirely, but effectively you can interact with the Oculus ecosystem, not anonymously, but fairly pseudonymously, I guess you could say. And I don't log into mine with a Facebook account. I don't do any of that horse shit. It's something to keep in mind, okay? And I just want you to know that I am really keeping an eye on that, because when I tell people, look, let's stop fucking using Facebook, I mean it. Let's drop it. And maybe if we can get everybody off of Messenger and off of the news feed and groups and whatever else, and then they can end up, and maybe they're still on Instagram or on Oculus, then maybe we can talk about leaving those platforms as well. But if you needed another reason to leave Facebook, one of the main points that I bring up every time is that even if you think that, no, I'm okay with handing over my data, Okay, I am willing to make the trade with Facebook. You let me use your services, I'll let you collect my data. Okay, even if you think that that's all right, the question becomes, you only hand over that data because you feel that the company would probably be a pretty good steward of it, right? That they would protect it. They would not use it against you or, in any kind of malicious way. Well, that's the rub, right? Is that with Facebook, we have it proven over and over again that the data will literally be used against you. Or they will do something malicious like behavioral programming or behavioral experiments, I should say, against you and collect the data on it. I mean, they are not, and there's so many leaks, Cambridge Analytica and whatever else, they are not good stewards of your data. So even if you think that it's valid to hand over your data, I would hope that you would only think it valid to hand your data over to a good steward or someone that has some kind of track record or that you trust in a certain way of being a steward of your data. Facebook is not that company. It's proven time and time again, and here's more proof, and this is double egregious because this has to do with fucking security. Like security that you're supposedly enabling with them and that they're using against you. Here's a story from TechCrunch. Here's the headline. Yes, Facebook is using your two-factor authentication phone number to target you with ads. Let's read the story. What the hell does that mean? Facebook has confirmed it does in fact use phone numbers that users provide it for security purposes to also target them with ads. Specifically, a phone number handed over two-factor authentication or handed over for two-factor authentication, a security technique that adds a second layer of authentication to help keep accounts secure. Facebook's confession follows a story Gizmodo ran yesterday related to research work carried out by academics at 2 U.S. universities who ran a study in which they say they were able to demonstrate the company, that being Facebook, uses pieces of personal information that individuals did not explicitly provide it to nonetheless target them with ads. While it's been, if not clear, then at least evident for a number of years that Facebook uses contact details of individuals who never personally provided their information for ad targeting purposes, harvesting people's personal data by other means, such as other users' mobile phones and your contact books, which the Facebook app uploads. In fact, let me read. The revelation that numbers provided to Facebook by users in good faith for the purpose of 2FA, two-factor authentication, are also, in his view, fair game for ads that has not been so explicitly fessed up to before. Of course, Stallion breaking in, now it is. Now, I want to read more of the story here. Okay, but I remember, this is, like 8 years ago, maybe, 2010, something like that, when people found out that Facebook was actually uploading your contact list off of your phone to Facebook itself. In 2010, people flipped the fuck out. Maybe it was 09, 10, something like that. But people were flipping out. Like, can you believe Facebook is doing this? But people still use Facebook. It kept on, But now, I mean, it like that act in and of itself seems so unimportant and basic and minuscule in comparison to everything that Facebook does. But it just shows how, as these things, the trampling on of your personal data gets more and more egregious, how people just, they just get used to it. And they're just like, well, yeah, that happens. I mean, even like we were talking when we were quoting Brian Krebs earlier, and he was saying that, yeah, after you've been in this for a while, it's just, it's not if, it's when. And it just keeps happening, and you just get depressed about it. And yeah, I think people are sadly just giving up when you can do something. I mean, you really can. But here's, I want to read more, okay? But I just wanted to remind you that, like, there used to be a time where people would really give a shit about something that what seems now unimportant. Well, of course they have my contact info. It asks me for it. It says allow and blah, blah, blah. People used to freak out about that, but now people just don't seem to care. Reading on. While it's been, some months ago, Facebook did say that users who were getting spammed with Facebook notifications to the number they provided for two-factor authentication was a bug. So initially, Stallion breaking in, Facebook said that was a bug. That wasn't actually happening. Quote, the last thing we want is for people to avoid helpful security features because they fear they will receive unrelated notifications, end quote. Facebook then CSO Alex Stamos wrote in a blog post at the time. Apparently not thinking to mention the rather pertinent additional side detail that is nonetheless happy to repurpose the same security feature, again, that's the egregious part here, the security feature, for ad targeting because money, presumably. Well, we asked Facebook to confirm this is indeed what it's doing, to make it doubly sure, because seriously, what the fuck? and it sent us a statement confirming that it repurposes digits handed to it by people wanting to secure their accounts to target them with marketing. Here's the statement attributed to a Facebook spokesperson, quote, "We use the information people provide to offer a better, more personalized experience on Facebook, including ads. We are clear about how we use the information we collect, including the contact information that people upload or add to their own accounts. You can manage and delete the contact information you've uploaded at any time," end quote. A spokesman also told us that users can opt out of this ad-based repurposing of their security digits by not using phone number-based two-factor authentication, albeit the company only added the ability to do non-mobile phone-based 2FA back in May. So anyone before then was all out of luck. On the shadow profiles front, aka Facebook maintaining profiles of non-users based on the data it has been able to scrape about them from users and other data sources, the company has also been less than transparent. Founder Mark Zuckerberg feigned confusion when questioned about the practice by U.S. lawmakers earlier this year, claiming it only gathers data on non-users for security purposes. So if you're a non-Facebook user, they collect data about you for security purposes. If you're a Facebook user, they use your security data, like your two-factor authentication phone number, to sell you ads. Hey, how is any of this okay? How are you not storming the Facebook headquarters? Peacefully. With torches. Peacefully. You get people that freak out about a fucking statue. And you got this going on, and no one even blinks. Reading on. When it seems Facebook is also using the valid security concerns of actual users to extend its ability to target individuals with ads by using phone numbers provided for 2FA to also carry out ad targeting. Safe to say, criticism of the company has been swift and sharp. Soon, Facebook will be using behind-the-scenes tech means to target ads at WhatsApp users, despite also providing a robust encrypted security wrapper and their actual messages. Stamos, now Facebook's ex-CSO, has also defended its actions on that front. Ex-CSO. Look, folks, how much do I have to say about this? Now, first off, let's be very clear here that SMS-based, getting what you're doing is you're giving for 2FA, for two-factor authentication, you're giving Facebook a phone number where they can send you a security code so that you can log in and it's to secure your account. That is not good security. All right. We've talked about that for years on the show. Way ahead of the curve. Do not, if you can help it, do not use SMS-based two-factor authentication. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. That's a fact. All right, but it is only until recently that Facebook has been allowing for the use of security keys like YubiKeys, or where there's a code generator app, or you get to use one-time pins and things like this. Before that, if you really wanted to try and lock down your account, they offered SMS-based two-factor authentication. Again, it's bad 2FA. But, people used it, and at the time, maybe a lot of people didn't know that it was bad 2FA, and so they ran with it, whatever. But they were doing it under the auspices, and maybe they used a completely separate phone that they didn't want attached to them. That way they could even get past the concerns of, if somebody does a phone switch, and they steal your SMS credentials as they go along. Okay, so that way they didn't know that it was attached to you, but that phone number then was being used to, by Facebook to serve you ads. I mean, this is ugly on every account. You are giving them something for the purposes of security, and they are using it for the exact opposite of security. Because targeted ads, which is what this is about, targeted ads are one of the best ways. Ask any hacker or security researcher. Targeted ads are one of the best ways to track you and to invade your privacy. Widely used by alphabet soup organizations to do so. Widely used. Yes, a security feature is being used to make you less secure, because I would argue that privacy and anonymity, if you can get there, are an essential component of actually having security. And, up until recently, in fact, we talked about this, Instagram only just recently implemented where you could do one-time PIN two-factor authentication. Before that, your only option was to use SMS-based authentication. Since they're owned by Facebook, do you think Facebook collected all those phone numbers too? The fuck they did. Of course they did. Now it kind of makes sense. Hey, what took Facebook so long? Why did they take so long to give us the code generator, or to give us, YubiKey authentication, or to allow us to use one-time pins, or OTP tokens and everything? Like, what took so long? Why did Instagram, one of the most popular services on the planet where accounts are hacked on the regular, even celebrities and so on, what took so long? Oh, this is what took so long, because it would have fucked with their money-making ad model if they implemented this. But it's just, I guess things have just gotten so bad now with SMS and the concerns, and people are just finally saying, look, we're not even going to give you this anymore, that finally they're like, all right, fine. We'll give you actual two-factor authentication that works. Okay, you twisted our arm. We'll do that. This fucking company. When does it get bad enough? Anyone hearing the sound of my voice, when does it get bad enough? When do you say, God damn it, I'm not giving this company another single data point of mine ever? Because they have shown that they cannot handle that data, or they trample on it. They're egregious with it. They leak it. They do whatever else. They sell it, and you don't get a cut of that. Not really. When? You can email me. You tell me. Defend Facebook. I've been dying. I've been wanting somebody. Please defend Facebook for me. You can't. It's almost you treat it like government. Like, well, yeah, it's bad, but it's there. We got to deal with it. No, you don't have to deal with Facebook. You don't. Anyway, now I'm going to lighten things up. We got a little movie review we're going to get into to wrap up the show. I'll be right back with more. Hey, you heard about it at the top of the show. I have a whole new book out. Well, not whole new. If you signed up for the Sovryn Tech newsletter at zog.email, again, that's zog.email, you would have read some of these stories in an earlier form. But this is the Sovryn Universe. You love the fictional aspects of Sovryn Tech, baby. This is your book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. You can find it on Amazon, and it's going to be in all other places very soon. But for right now, if you want to get on your Kindle, get the ebook version, you get it on Amazon. You just type in Sovryn Universe, or there's a link in the show notes for this episode, and you can get your hands on it. It's only $2.99. It's a bunch of short stories, some of which are exclusive to this book. They will only ever come out for this book. They will never come out on Patreon. They will never come out in the Sovryn Tech newsletter. They will only be in this book. And boy, can I tell you, the ladies love these stories, okay? A pure hotness. I do erotic science fiction like no other. You want to get on this. Sovryn Universe. You can go to zog.email to find the link for the book. You can go to Amazon and just type in Sovryn Universe, Sovryn, or you can find the link in the show notes. Check it out. Thank you in advance. Woo! Let's get back to the show. Go get it. Go get the book, Sovryn Universe, Volume 1. It's fucking awesome.
The Climax.
All right, so let's get into it. I promised this last week, and that is a review of the movie The Predator. Now, you got to be careful with the names here, because the Predator, it sounds like I'm talking about Predator. Of course, then there's Predators. This is The Predator. This is the latest in the very popular, and I think it's popular. I mean, how many movies, if you count the Aliens versus Predator films, what are we talking, like 5 movies or so? I mean, that's now. I mean, that's pretty popular. This came out early in September. I want to say September 14th, something like that. So just a couple weeks ago. But yeah, this is your 2018 release. It's hard to believe. When did the first one came out in like 87? It would have been interesting if they did if they released this for a 30th anniversary, and I suppose they could have, but I know it was somewhat plagued with some production issues or production concerns and drama. Not so much production issues themselves, because honestly, there's lots of places to start with a movie like this, and I usually, when I do a movie review, I usually like to start with the music. I won't do that right this second, but just like the presentation of the predators, and there are multiple, spoiler alerts, by the way, folks, you're going to get spoilers here. But for the multiple predators in the film and the effects overall and everything, I mean, because that was a problem that would plague the Aliens versus Predator films, I thought everything looked great. Like there were I didn't think anything looked really cheap. I mean, you even have like the predators, or one of the predators actually has like these dog-like creatures. They look fantastic. I mean, there's absolutely no issue with that. And the original Predator from '87 with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I mean, that was a small, little effects masterpiece. I mean, they really, like, the Predator looked really creepy, and of course that look has stuck, has stayed around, and you certainly get that in this film. So for that consistency to really continue, worked. Like I said, I mean, me personally, and this is almost hard to believe, okay? I don't think everything Predator is great, just like I don't think everything in the Alien franchise is great. I'm not the biggest fan of Alien 3. I am not the biggest fan of Alien Resurrection, even though I went to theaters to go see that. Joss Whedon, he can fuck up. I know everybody's like, oh, Joss is the fucking man. Joss is this, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, he can make a shitty film. I mean, not the Resurrection, like, it's not horrible, but it's just not, it's not even Alien Covenant, and it's certainly not Alien or Aliens, not even by a long shot, frankly. I mean, Ridley Scott's Ridley Scott. What are you going to do? Arguably the greatest director of all time, arguably, okay? But it's kind of hard to believe, but like the Alien versus Predator films, like I really, in my own mind, I just pretend they didn't happen. Requiem's better than the first one, but this is going to shock some people. I actually think that there is something that it can be too cheesy, and I think the first Alien versus Predator film is too fucking cheesy. Like when the woman in that, when she takes the tail of the alien and like a scale off of its back and uses it as a spear and shield, I'm just looking, I'm like, no, that's just stupid. That's just ridiculous. Like that is just going too far. I know most people would say, wow, I can't believe Brian, this alien thinks that there's something that's too cheesy. No, that's too fucking cheesy. I could not handle that. So I like to think that those films didn't happen. And honestly, the movie The Predator pretty much acts like it didn't happen. Now, it's a movie that takes place in the more or less present day. It's not like Predators from 2010 with Adrian Brody, which took place in the future, which was also, it was a pretty good film. I have that trilogy. When you buy them on Blu-ray, you can buy that set where it's just the trilogy, and it doesn't come with the Alien versus Predator films at all. I think the 1987 film, before we really get into the 2018 Predator, I think the 1987 film is a mini masterpiece. And it's not just because of Schwarzenegger, even though he certainly takes it to the next level. I mean, you really got, as I've heard on other shows, you have peak Schwarzenegger when it comes to the Predator. I mean, he's really delivering in that. Tremendous lines. It's really like it's such a well done film. I actually showed it to Stephanie. Stephanie thought it was great. Like she totally got it. Kind of the mystery around it was really cool. And I will say that. So then there was Predator 2, which came out in 1990, which is I like that film a lot. Like it's none of them are as good as the original Predator movie, none of them. But Predator 2 was pretty good. I mean, what's his name? Was that James Glover, John Glover, whatever his name is. Anyway, the guy from the Lethal Weapon movies, he's in it playing a very serious role, and that's fun to see. And of course, the Predator 2 movie is what kind of gave us, besides the comic books and the video games, which the Capcom arcade game of Alien vs. Predator, I think, is one of the best games ever made. It's kind of a side-scrolling beat-em-up. I really enjoy the hell out of it. I play that all the time. It's I break out the full-on, I have the arcade sticks and everything. I break those out and I play that. We'll play that 3-player or something. I mean, that's just so much damn fun. But in 1990, Predator 2 was really something that led to this amalgamation of the Alien universe and the Predator universe, because when you go into the Predator ship in Predator 2, you see the skeleton of the xenomorph, of the alien from Alien, and which I always thought was really, really cool. And I give that movie a lot of credit, really, for doing that. But it was set in a fictional 1997, okay, where like a future LA where things have really very much gone awry. Of course, one could argue in LA things really have gone awry since 1997, but it was definitely a very interesting look into the future, and not so far future when it was made in 1990. The movie The Predator does make reference to Predator 2. Of course, it can't make reference to Predators because that's in the far future. But it does make reference to, of course, the original Predator and Predator 2, because it says that, there's a point where a guy that's pretty much CIA or the government says that, they've been here before, talking about the Predators, saying they're here, they've been here in 1987 and that they had been there in 1997. So it's kind of making this point that it's been around every 10 years, which is interesting, to say the least. And I'm glad they at least, pretty much admitted that Predator 2 exists. I would have loved something, if there's something quick that could have made this movie, that could have taken it to another level, if just some of the character, like if Arnold showed up, or even the main character from Predator 2, if they were in this in some way, that really could have helped, I think, legitimize this film for a lot of your longtime fans of at least the original Predator movie, but the Predator movies overall. But not uninterestingly, this movie was more or less written by, it was written by Fred Decker and Shane Black, and directed by Shane Black. Again, there's problems within all of that. There's some problems in who Shane Black hired. I'm aware of those issues, to work on the film. But regardless, Shane Black was in the original Predator film from 1987. He plays one of the guys on Schwarzenegger. What Schwarzenegger's character's name was Dutch. Dutch, one of Dutch's men, was Shane Black. In fact, he's one of the first to die in the movie. He's the one that keeps cracking the jokes about pussy. And so it's interesting to have him, to have Shane Black making this movie. Now, Shane Black can make a fine film. I mean, I thought Iron Man 3 was good. He has a pretty good list of films under his belt now. Again, there's some question as to how much of this final cut that we saw of Predator, how much was it Shane Black and so on, and I get that, but that's not an aspect I really need to talk about here. I'd much rather more talk about the film. So again, the film takes place in the modern day, and we have a predator. Effectively, we end up with predators hunting predators, and you don't exactly understand why, what is going on with all this. It's really just a mystery, and these various characters, including a character played by Olivia Munn, which I have not always been impressed with Olivia Munn's acting. She did it in this. It worked. She was funny. In fact, she gets a great line in this where she sees the predator. She's playing a scientist, and she sees the predator for the first time, and she's this scientist that's obsessed with the concept of aliens and everything, and she looks at it, and as ugly as predators are, she says, "You beautiful motherfucker." And I laughed. I thought it was so brilliant, because that's, what Dutch says, what Schwarzenegger's character says in the first film is, "You ugly motherfucker." But she says, "You beautiful motherfucker." I thought that was a nice homage, to the first film. Jake Busey's in it, does phenomenal. I thought that was I wasn't expecting him to do that well. Boyd Holbrook, I think, is the actor playing the main character here, which I don't exactly dig his look, but he's playing the character of Quinn McKenna, who's kind of the main hero in this, the army guy, the sniper, and then he has his band of kind of crazies, shall we say, that, for the military. Here's the thing. This is, and Stephanie and I went and both saw it. We were laughing our asses off. This is a funny movie. Surprisingly funny. Now, the first Predator was funny too. Predator 2 was a lot more serious. Predators was deadly serious. But this movie got back to where Predator had some jokes to make, and with Jesse Ventura's character and so on. But this was fucking funny. In fact, I don't remember the last time I laughed this much sitting in a theater. I really don't. It was that funny. The jokes landed that well. I was really, really surprised by that. And in fact, what's his name? The guy that played Miller from The Expanse, he was in this. He was phenomenal He was great. Was that Thomas Jane or whatever? Just fantastic. And I mean, and you had some other, Keegan Michael Key was in it. So, I mean, you're going to get some good comedy there, Key and Peele. I was surprised at how damn funny this movie was. That's kind of the first thing to say about it. I'll just call it right here. I didn't love it. I don't think it's great, but I really liked this film. I mean, I really had a good time watching it. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. So why don't we break down some of the, again, the plot of the movie is you have predators kind of hunting predators. The overall plot that you get, there is kind of a environmentalist message to the film, saying that maybe the predators want to come here, but the movie ends up explaining a lot within the predator universe. Why do they take spinal cords, as their trophies? And you find out it's because they're trying to take the best of whatever species they happen to hunt, and they are trying to personally evolve. Then we get left with, at the end, like this, what do they call it? A predator killer. And it's the suit that you can put on. And it makes you look like a predator, but kind of robotic, and it goes over whatever human happens to be wearing it. And I guess it's to take on other predators. I mean, it's left. This movie leaves you with a lot of room for sequels and doesn't explain everything, but I think that's all right. Like, I don't mind that they don't exactly explain what's going on. And I would like sequels. Like I said, I like this movie a lot. If Shane Black wants to rock a trilogy with this thing, I don't know that it's going to happen now, because I don't think it's doing great money, unfortunately. But I would love to see it. So anyway, back to kind of reviewing the film overall. Music. I always love to start with the music on these movies. They pretty much Henry Jackman did the score, but they pretty much just copied the classic. Was that Silvestri? Alan Silvestri, I think, that did the first Predator film. They just copied his notes. They did it, and the whole dun, 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 that whole thing. Fine. Like, that music is so simple and it works so well, and you can just keep repeating it. You can put it on loop. Henry Jackman didn't need to, come up with anything original. Just run with that. Dun, 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 all that. I think that's great. So music. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing new here for the Predator franchise, but it worked. You don't have to do new. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. That music is iconic in a very real way. In fact, this is something about the original Predator movie. Not that any of the other Predator films have lived up to this, but I think in '87, the original Predator film was really a map for how to make video games, right down to the boss battles. That's pretty much what you get at the end of that movie is a full-on boss battle. This movie is nothing like that, but I think there's an importance to that, but also like the ability to use simple music that you can keep looping. I mean, I really think the original Predator film is a template for a great video game. Of course, there would be a Predator game for NES, and not that was great, but bottom line being is that it would become very much the template for a lot of what I think a lot of great modern video games, or certainly certain ones over the past, we'll say 20 years. Again, I mean, this film, Shane Black made it very paint by numbers. The direction was fine. The acting was fine. There's nothing, no problem there. The addition of having an autistic character, that seems to be a trend within Hollywood right now. I think that's totally fine. And yeah, I mean, I can, on a personal level, I can kind of appreciate it because my nephew is autistic. And so, it's great for there to be some kind of representation of that. But regardless, I mean, all the acting was solid. And you just, I don't know, you end up appreciating all of these characters. I mean, they're kind of stereotypes in a way, but all the characters are just so much fun. You just dig it. Everybody seems to bring whatever their version of their A game is. Even like Thomas Jane, brings a very unique presentation that you're not used to if you only know him as Miller from The Expanse. But that all works. Like I said, the effects are fine. There's nothing out of place, nothing that takes you out of the moment of what's going on. I thought that worked very well. The action, which is important for a Predator film, what's the action like? The action is properly intense when needed. One of the strengths of this film, I felt, was that, and this is a problem that Predator 2 had and that I think really Predators would have, is that, look, after the first Predator movie, we know the score. We know the deal. All right, we know what the Predator is. We've seen it. Playing up the big reveal of the monster, and like hinting at the monster, which was brilliant in the first film. Like, a lot of people don't realize this. In the first movie, you're constantly getting, every 10 minutes or so, you'll get another reveal of a part of the Predator. Like, first you'll see him cloaked. Then maybe you'll see his eyes. Then maybe you'll see a little bit of his blood. Then maybe you'll see, his arm. Okay, then maybe you'll see a little bit of his helmet or something. Like, you'd get a very slow reveal until finally at the end, you're closer to the end, you get the full payoff with what this thing looks like. And then at the end of the end of the movie, you get the full payoff where he takes his, his helmet off and everything. The other movies tried to kind of emulate that reveal, that slow reveal, but there's no point to it. It just creates like a slow pace that's completely unnecessary because we all know what the Predators are now, and so you don't have to do that. So credit to this film, they did not waste time on the reveal at all. In fact, they did quite the opposite because, like, really when you first see the Predator, I mean, it opens up with a little bit of a space battle, which was kind of cool. But, pretty much from the onset, you're seeing the Predator in full glory, in full ugliness, as it were. And so I'm glad that they didn't waste time like that because there's no need for that narrative trick to be used in any Predator film going forward. Again, I mean, it's such an iconic character. Everybody, even if they haven't seen a Predator film, has probably seen the Predator with his mask off. And I guess, so I'll give it credit for that. Again, this isn't a movie that reinvents the wheel at all. This isn't a movie that, is going to go, deserves any kind of award. I really don't think it deserves any kind of award, other than maybe it's an award to make a great Predator, or to make a good Predator movie again. There's nothing necessarily special here, other than I was really laughing really hard during it. Especially the first half of this movie is damned funny. Just surprisingly so funny. Now, as far as any real problems with the film, I got a couple nitpicks that I could bring up. And I get it. How do you present a threatening situation with the Predator? I'm really tired of the jungle sequences. I got to give credit to Predator 2, where they did it all in the urban jungle in the city of L.A., which is probably more dangerous than any jungle. No, I'm kidding. But you end up in the jungle again, and it's just okay, this beat we've seen too many times now. Okay, we don't need this again. So it would have been better if there was more of a. I mean, they do go throughout a city and throughout a town and all this, but it really would have been. I would have liked it more if the end battle was somewhere other than a jungle. Bottom line, that felt a little too familiar. As far as there's other points of the film where things are familiar and it's a good thing. This was too much. So there's that problem with it. The other problem is that the ending, even though I don't mind that they don't really explain the point of everything, and maybe even what was the point of the recent Predator visit, you don't exactly get a full explanation of that. The ending does seem to be very shoddily cut. The last 6 to 8 minutes of the film do some very weird transitions, between scenes that seem rushed, and I feel like there's more movie there that we just didn't get. So the ending, while it works, it does seem a little rushed, a little forced, and I don't know, maybe they didn't know how to explain what was going on, or maybe they did purposely want to leave the mystery, which is fine, but they could have done that a little bit better. I thought the ending, if there's a weak point to this movie, it's definitely the last 8 minutes, even though the Predator killer is pretty cool. I mean, over the top, but that's okay. But it was pretty cool. But other than that, yeah, I don't know that. That part just felt weird to me, and again seemed very, very, very rushed. But otherwise, those are really my only complaints of the film, because otherwise I really enjoyed it, and I did not expect to enjoy it. I heard about some of the production problems. The trailers did not look like that they were going to blow my socks off or anything. But Stephanie and I went and saw it, and we were like, well, holy shit, that was that was a fun night, you know. We just didn't expect that. I mean, I didn't expect like a totally serious movie, but I expected a fairly serious film, and it's still serious, but it just had tons of humor in it. So it'd be a shame if more of these didn't get made. If we didn't get a sequel to this at least, I really would like that, but I don't know that it's doing the money. But you know, if you're looking for a funny time, go catch this. I mean, I really think it's worthwhile. And if you're a fan of the Predator series, it's a fine entry. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. So you know, go ahead, go check it out. So anyway, yeah, I mean, again, the only complaints I have, I mean, those are two pretty small complaints, because, you know, just the ending, it felt odd. It's not that they did necessarily anything wrong. It just felt weird the way the editing was done. Like I said, it just felt very rushed. Maybe there's deleted scenes that maybe we'll get some kind of director's cut when it comes on a home video release, which it might end up doing very well on home video. I could really picture that, especially if they do some kind of director's cut. I'd be game for that. So anyway, that's it for this week's Sovryn Tech. Just a good quick, or well, not so quick, but a good review really of the Predator series as a whole. If I was going to rank them, I would Predator's obviously in the number one spot. It's never going to leave, because that movie's just so, like I said, it's a mini masterpiece. It's so well done. Such a great little action sci-fi flick. So Predator would probably be number one. I think I might put The Predator at number two, with Predator 2 at number 3, and then Predators at number 4. And like I said, we don't talk about the Alien versus Predator films. Those are fucking horrible. They're so goddamn bad. But you know, the Predator comics are awesome. I read those all the time. What are we doing? What's the one running right now? Is it Big Hunt 2? Or no, I don't think it's that. I forget what's the present running series. But if you really want some great Predator action, you read those damn comic books that Dark Horse has been putting out. They're phenomenal. Okay, anyway, that is it for this week's Sovryn Tech. Of course, if you want to support the show, go to Patreon, patreon.com/SovrynTech. Sign up. There's all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of new cool stuff. Even though there's always been new content every week, there's going to be new kinds of content coming out from now on. And it's just really exciting what I get to develop for that. So anyway, yeah, patreon.com/SovrynTech, and I will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.